All right, guys, what's going on? I am back, as I had promised, with my third of a voice, here to bring you some story time. Now, in my cast that I did earlier, I was talking about how I was going to talk about these dreams that I've had for the past, give or take 8-10 years, and how I feel they can tie into what Ben Davidson has been talking about with his solar micronova and the cycle of cataclysm here on this planet. So, without further ado, let me get into this. So they all started about, I'd even say 10 years ago at this point. And these dreams were unlike any other dreams that I've had before. They were at first pseudo-lifelike, and what I mean by pseudo-lifelike is they were realistic, but happened in places that I had never seen or never been. And then as time progressed, they started happening in places I knew, with people I knew, etc. And then the final coup de grace was a very bizarre one, which I will get into. So, about 10 years ago, I started having these dreams. They were tsunami dreams. And when I say tsunami, I don't mean what hit Japan in 2011. I'm talking something 5-10 times the size of that. I know, scary thought. So, in these dreams, I'd always be on a coastline. And I would hear this rumble. And then when I knew I heard the rumble, I would know the wave was coming. It's very interesting. And like I said, the first few dreams I would say were pseudo-realistic. They're realistic in experience, but as far as the places they occurred, they're nowhere I know, in this lifetime at least. But the theme that stayed recurrent throughout each of my dreams was I would always manage to get away from the tsunami. I would always manage to get inside somewhere or to get somewhere safe, and I would survive the tsunami. So these dreams recurred in succession, probably 2 to 4 times a year. And I would always know, and this is what kind of brought me to be semi-lucid in these dreams and experiences, was I always knew the rumble. Every time I heard the rumble, it was like lucidity hit me in the dream, and I was like, okay, we're doing this again. Time to escape the mile-high tsunami for the 10th time at this point. So, over time, they started happening in very realistic places. One place that it happened was on the Potomac. As most of y'all know, I'm originally from the Washington, D.C. area. Born and raised Centerville, Virginia. I used to do a lot of work along the Potomac in Northern Virginia and southwestern D.C. And in one particular dream, I was sitting there doing work on someone's home, and I heard the rumble, and I looked, and I saw this gigantic wave just funneling itself up the Potomac right towards me. But in the dream, this house had some kind of weird cellar that was waterproof I could hop down into, and then I was like, all right, cool, I'm escaping the tsunami yet again. And then one happened in Florida, around Tampa. My brother, my mother, and my nephew live in Florida, and an incident occurred there, a dream occurred there, where I saw this. So these progressed in intensity and severity over the years until this one. Now, buckle your seatbelts. I know this is going to seem a little out there, what I'm about to tell you, but who knows? Maybe this was a real place at a time. So I was on an ancient megalithic city on a coastline. And we had pyramids, but they were high-tech pyramids. They were more technologically advanced than the pyramids that we see or what we know as today. And we had these weird crafts flying around. They were like, they could fly in the air, but they could submerge themselves and become boats as well. And I was sitting on the shoreline. As I'm talking about myself, I looked like I do now, except I was what appeared to be very tall. Very, very tall. Most of you know me, I'm 5'10" right now. I was probably a good 7 to 8 feet in this dream. And I was around people who I called my family. And we were in the coastline playing with the sharks and the dolphins. Like the sharks and the dolphins were coming up to us and they'd want us to pet them. I know, truly surreal. This is still part of the dream, mind you. And two of the people who were part of my family ended up going off and doing their own thing. And I was there with this woman who I called my mother. And I remember I'm sitting there with my mother in the dream and I hear the rumble. And I immediately look up and see the waves starting to crest on the horizon. I grabbed this woman who I thought was my mother and we ran inside one of the pyramids. And one of the pyramids had like this elevator and I'm sitting there trying to work it, trying to activate it. And I'm getting frustrated because it's not working. And she's starting to freak out too because it's not working. And then the wave hits the pyramid. And when it hits this pyramid, it hits it with such force, it throws me and this woman outside of the pyramid onto the ground. And somehow we managed to get into one of these weird boat crafts. And the second wave propels us into the mountain range that's nearby. We crash land. I get out and telepathy falls short when describing this because I did not hear it in my head. I felt it in my chest. And this I will touch base on with other experiences I've had. All right, so we crash land. I get out and I'm hearing, quote unquote, telepathically people screaming, dying. I'm watching this whole civilization just perish in front of me. And I'm sitting there distraught, because I don't know what to do. I can't save them. And the woman who I called my mother was distraught as well. And she looked at me after the wave had subsided and everything was destroyed. She goes, "We have to warn them." And I said, "Warn who?" So she took my hand and we faded through dimensions to a future timeline that we're on today. The same coastline, the same megalithic city, or where the megalithic city was, same coastline, same area, but more modernized, like our world today. So she looks at me and goes, "We have to appear to the children because the children have not been adulterated by the conditioning of their society. They will be able to view us and listen to us with full capacity," which I find very interesting because if you look at cases of the paranormal and cases of aliens, alien abduction, whatever you want to call it, the children are always the most sensitive. They are. So I found that very strange in that correlation. So we fade from this octave into their dimension. And we sit in front of them and we tell them they have to warn everybody that there's a disaster coming, that there's a wave coming. And they looked at us and they said, "But we're kids. Who's going to believe us? They're not going to listen to us." And then the woman who referred to herself as my mother, in the most, concrete and certain way, said, "Tell them the Shining Ones told you." And then we dissipated back into this dimensional layer, or whatever it is. And I remember walking around the marketplace where we appeared to these children, and I'm looking at all the different things, and then I find this keychain or this necklace, and it's wooden. And when I turn it around, it is the Japanese symbol for love. And then as soon as I saw it, I woke up from this dream. Now, I've had them ever since that one, but none of them were as truly prolific and profound as that one was. I do wholeheartedly believe that there is a cycle on this planet, that we go through periods of peace and we go through periods of chaos here. And when I say this, I'm not saying it from a point of being afraid. I'm not saying it out of fear. I'm saying it in a way that this is planet Earth. This is how it's always been and always will be. These are the cyclical nature of this planet and our reality. So I do believe what this experience I had does have to tie in to what Ben Davidson talks about in his 12,000 year micronova cycle, the half cycles, the Heinrich events, which are the quarter cycles, all of those different events that occur here on this planet. I believe there's something to that because of the mathematics behind it. You look at 12,000 year cycles for the micronova. What is the Mayan calendar year? 12,000 years technically, or the Mayan calendar length for the Baktuns is 12,000 years. Maybe they knew something. Maybe that's how they upright just vanished without a trace, disappeared. There's small remnants left, but they're gone now. So I do plan on bringing this up when I talk with Ben. I'd like to hear his thoughts on it. Who knows? Maybe in a past life I was here and I lived through this and I'm back here to do it again. That would be a glutton for punishment now, wouldn't it? Well, guys, I'll be posting something else a little bit later this afternoon. Until next time.